Hey guys, and welcome back to the most Starcastic and Remarky show of all time. This is Starcastic Remarks alongside Chris and James. My name is Ryan. James is apparently the handsomer brother. I forgot about that. We hadn't changed that.
You did that. I didn't do
did that. I guess I did that. But for those of you that are watching on the audio side, if you watch it on YouTube, you can see underneath James's name it says the handsomer brother. And just because I want to make fun of Chris, because this is something literally that happened right before we went live on air. If you look on YouTube on the bottom right hand side of Chris's little box over there, he's got he was like, what is that? He couldn't figure out like what was going on over there, and he's just like, oh wait, that's my microphone.
Yeah, I thought there was something behind me or something, or on my poster, and I was really freaked out. But it was just the microphone.
Just the microphone, which by the way is brand new because he basically raged against the last microphone on Thursday's episode. So I thought that was hilarious. I thought your microphone on Saturday went very well though, Chris. It looked very good. So
yeah, apologies for the audio quality though.
Anyways, gotta love that the Stars are continuing their winning ways. They win by a final score of 2-0 tonight. Excuse me, over the Seattle Kraken. The first period, in my opinion, was very exciting. It was very up tempo. The second was kind of meh. And then the third, at the beginning of the third, it was really exciting. And then it went kind of back to meh. So I really don't care that Stars get the win, just like they tend to do always the last couple of years. And they take care of business. Lots of things to talk about here. But what's your biggest storylines coming out of tonight?
I mean, back-to-back shutouts is the obvious one. Casey DeSmith was his first start as a Dallas Star. Really impressed. I thought he was fantastic. And it did look, after the first period, it looked like two teams that were playing on a back-to-back. So the Stars took care of business. They played well defensively in front of their backup goalie, and you didn't have to make too many crazy saves. I think Otter's shutout yesterday was a little bit more impressive if you think about just the quality of saves that he had. But, I mean, DeSmith still getting it done as the backup, and the Stars were making it easier on him.
Yeah. I think really the big storyline for me through these 3 games so far is scoring first. I mean, every single time, and getting a lead pretty quickly too has been kind of a trend. So that's been something that the Stars have been able to hang on to. And coming into this game, it's pretty much what won us the game. I mean, getting the lead early, we didn't have to do much after that.
Well, and tonight was excellent for DeSmith. I thought he was better as the game went through. And he was making a lot bigger saves than he needed to. What I absolutely loved was his ability to kind of stand up in the net, even though despite his size, compared to some other goalies, he's still one of the smaller goalies, which is kind of crazy to think. I think he's like, what is he, 6 foot?
6 foot
now.
6 foot. That's crazy to think he's one of the smaller guys, but it is what it is. But he had a very good game tonight, and he with Ottinger for the first time in franchise history, they go back-to-back, shutouts in back-to-back games. So excellent job by both netminders in the last 2 games. So DeSmith did excellent. Anything else about this? What else did y'all see tonight?
Well, I thought like I said, I thought the defense from the Stars was really great overall. Heiskanen took a big chunk of minutes with Dumba being out. He was fantastic all game long. He didn't show a lot of offense, but man, every time he touched the puck in his own zone, it was immediately out. There was almost no issue. I think I saw one play where he struggled to get it out, and he got it right back immediately. So Heiskanen's amazing. We all know that. We have to force ourselves to say it sometimes because we just have to. We just kind of accept it that he's so great, but he really showed it tonight with 25 minutes time on ice and really covering for that hole in the lineup with Dumba being out.
Yeah, and it really exits out of our own zone tonight were very solid for most of the game. There was a little bit bad at the end of the second where we were icing it a bunch, and the beginning of the third where there was a lot of icing there. But for the most part, exits out of our own zone were a lot smoother tonight than in the past 2 games.
And, hands off to the Kraken, honestly, because they had a really good game, too. It's been the thing the last couple of seasons for them. They just can't seem to score and get enough going. They had the Stars pinned in the second period. I really thought they did. And they were the better team in the second period. It was just a combination of just not being able to get the shots off at the right time, and also a little bit of Casey DeSmith, and also a little bit of just the Stars team defense making sure that they didn't give up enough big chances.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of that is also fatigue as well. I mean, second period, you have the long shift on the second night of a back-to-back. That can get tough. And the beginning of the second, they looked decent. But as once we got to the middle, it was very much, it just felt like both teams were kind of passing the puck back and forth to each other.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too much credit to say that the Kraken obviously won the second period. They won the one shift when the Duchesne line got stuck out there for an extended period and they iced the puck several times. Other than that, though, I thought this period was, like you said, just pretty meh back and forth. So if you want to say technically the Kraken won that because of one shift, I'll give it to you. But I don't think the Kraken really did anything special, and there wasn't too much of a push all night long. And if there was one, then the Stars were able to easily stifle it with their team defense. So I thought the Stars shut down the Kraken completely tonight.
Well, and the other thing that was, I wouldn't say frustrating, but you kind of wish they had taken advantage of it, was the lack of the Stars to, I don't know, capitalize on their own chances. I mean, you had Sagan with a breakaway, you had Mush with a breakaway. The Stars had numerous chances on the power play, which didn't look terrible tonight, but again, didn't get anything off of the power play tonight. So, I mean, we're nitpicking here. That it was a very good game, despite the fact that this is the second night of a back-to-back. It's weird because it's 2 back-to-back games at home, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Nice.
But you know what? We would like to see them just take advantage of their chances there a little bit more, not have to hold on to the worst lead in hockey, a 2-goal lead.
Yeah, we're a 3-0 team right now to start the season, so we're going to have to nitpick a little bit to find some stuff to talk about after having 2 straight shutouts. But I agree. I think we left a lot of goals on the board there. Obviously, those 2 breakaways are huge. But in the late third period, the Stars had several good chances with just passes around the Kraken's end, and they couldn't get anything to go in tight either. I mean, Grubauer played great. He probably had some bigger saves than DeSmith did, actually. Mm-hmm. But I think the Stars do need to be able to execute a little bit more. And I'm a little bit worried about the top line going 2 straight games without being able to score a goal, especially with the looks that they've had. They've had some pretty juicy ones, I feel like, that they're normally able to cash in on. And I think some of that is a little bit due to having Dodonov on the top line, which was interesting. It definitely helped the Ben Johnston Stankoven line. But I think it hurt the top line a little bit. So I threw a bunch of y'all out there. So someone catch one of those.
There was a lot going back to chances that we missed out on. There's a lot of missed chances, and there was just chances from the Kraken too. I mean, the big one was the wide open missed net that they had for like the third straight game now. The other team has missed a wide open net. So Stars getting lucky early in the season and having good goaltending at the same time takes a little bit of both to get 2 shutouts like that as well. But I mean, the one thing I wanted to mention about the Stars power play in specific was like, it looked good, but it wasn't like particularly dangerous, you know?
Yes.
Like they had chances, but it never felt like it was going to go in.
That's one thing I kind of wanted to get back to too, is that I think it felt good because they were able to enter the zone pretty easily and had a lot of possession, but it didn't seem dangerous to me because they weren't trying to look for that pass below the dots. They were kind of just content with moving it around, getting it to the point, and getting a shot with traffic in front, which like that's fine. That should be a part of your power play. Number one with that is you have to be able to deflect the puck, and we didn't do that on any of our power play chances tonight, on any of those shots from the point, and there were a ton. And it has to just be a part of it. You have to be able to work the puck down low, below the net, which is what we did a lot of last year, which was super successful. And you've got to create some dangerous chances off the sides in tight as well. You can't just settle for what they're giving you up top, especially if you're not getting those deflections the way that you need to. And I liked what we did towards the end there, where Sagan was able to get free in the slot a little bit, get that one-timer that, I mean, felt like should have gone in. But more stuff like that needs to happen, I think. I like getting it to the point and finding stuff, but you got to be a little bit more creative than that, I think.
And this is where you miss guys like Joe Pavelski, especially. I mean, we don't have him on the team anymore. Someone's got to step up when it comes to deflections. If that's going to be something we're using, which, like you said, Chris, we saw that a lot today. We saw a lot of point shots, which is, again, it's not a bad thing, especially if you're trying to look for a bounce off of somebody or get it through to look for a rebound chance. But, it'd also be nice to have a deflection in there or whatnot, just to cause a little bit of chaos around Philip Grubauer. And we didn't really see a whole lot of that tonight. But moving forward, I think that's something that they can improve upon. I want to jump in real quick about the back-to-back home games, and because I felt like this was really interesting to talk about. This is only the 26th time in Stars history that we have seen something like this. So it's very, very rare that this happens. And I was kind of thinking about it, and I was just like, why don't they do this more often? I'm not saying we should have, 4 or 5 back-to-backs where the home team stays in their home city. And I'm sure there was a lot of scheduling conflicts, and that's why this had to happen this early on in the season. But it is interesting, I feel like, that we don't see more of stuff like this. I mean, why did they not take advantage of this, the NHL, like this? Because if you have more weekend stuff like this, where you have home games on Saturday, Sunday, like the Stars did, that's a lot of gate revenue that the NHL could get, and it brings a lot more eyeballs to hockey on the weekends, because there's not as obviously people are off of work for the most part, and they're looking at sports to kind of fill the time and get entertained. And I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. What do y'all think?
Yeah, that is what happens in the AHL. They'd really like to keep those games on Friday, Saturday, Sunday to make sure that they're able to sell out the building and get as many fans in there as they can. I think for the NHL, it's not as big of a problem, especially for the Stars. They've had crazy high attendance numbers. It's almost always a sellout, no matter if it's a weekend or a weekday. So I don't think that's a big issue for the National Hockey League, the way it is for like the Texas Stars down here in Austin. I think it happened this way more so to a building thing. I'd have to look, honestly, but they don't normally do them at home. They don't really want to do them on the road either. It kind of happens out of a necessity to make the road trip work and to make sure that the teams can get all the games in that they have to play. They got to play every team twice. They got to play their conference opponents, 3 or 4 times now, and they have to play in their division 3 times, or in their conference 3 times. So I think that's why you don't see it 2 back-to-back home games as often. It's just they're trying to avoid them.
Sense.
You just can't on a road trip.
Most of the time, it doesn't really make sense either, though, because you're trying to have teams fly in and out as well, and it has to be 2 teams doing the same type of trip at the same time for that to be able to happen.
Yeah.
And I guess what it also does is, if you don't have back-to-back home games, that extends the amount of time that players can stay at home. If that makes any sense. If there's like a day off between games, then they get to be at home more often, which I guess, most people would prefer that rather than being on the road more often. But still, I thought that was an interesting thing, because that's the first time that's happened in a very long time that I can remember. I can't even think of the last time that has happened where the Stars have had a back-to-back home games. Yes, it was to open the season, but I don't even remember that happening in recent memory. Troy from Facebook, was that Stars history for 2 donuts in a row to start a season home opener? I'm sure it was. That would be my guess.
Probably.
It was for back-to-back shutouts by 2 different netminders. That was history. So
yes,
there's at least that. I don't know if it is for back-to-back home games. It might be.
Yeah.
Stars have had some good goalies though.
We've had a lot of good goaltenders here in the past few years. So, okay, look, I want to get into a couple of the lineup changes here tonight as well. Obviously, Matt Dumba, he gets injured in the last game, is not able to make this game one. Hopefully, it's not a serious thing, which it didn't sound like it was, and it's more of a precautionary thing. But I doubt it, considering it's the regular season.
It sounded pretty serious. They said they're getting imaging on Monday, so they're not even trying to get him into this game. There wasn't even a thought.
Yeah. So then obviously Brendan Smith draws into the lineup. We see the Harley Heiskanen combo again. And then we saw, I mean, this is exactly like I said we thought we were going to see. We didn't really see all the defensemen playing with exclusively their partners. We saw lots of mix-ups, which was awesome. I mean, I got to see Heiskanen with Lundqvist out there. That was really interesting. We saw Brendan Smith out there with Esa Lindell. We saw lots of different combos. And again, it depended on the situation of the draw or what was going on in the game. So it was fun to see. And then obviously most of the minutes obviously went to the top three on the left side, Harley, Haskin, and then Lindell. But Lyubushkin, I also thought, had a pretty decent game, and Lundqvist is quietly doing his job. So he hasn't had anything that has stuck out in the first three games that has shown me that he is not doing well. And if he's virtually invisible, that's probably a good thing as a number 5, number 6 guy. So what did y'all think of the D core here tonight? Whether that's Smith, whether that's the different combos, what's y'all's thoughts?
Yeah, I like seeing Smith tonight, especially considering what we saw during the preseason. There was a couple. I think he was in 2 games, and he didn't really impress in either of those. But he looked a lot more comfortable tonight. He did his job perfectly fine. I didn't see any big mistakes. He was on there during the extended shift that we mentioned earlier with the Duchesne line. And he had trouble clearing the puck, but when he had trouble clearing the puck, he was also making great defensive plays and blocking shots and winning puck battles too. So I think that kind of shows you the kind of defenseman that he is. Like, he can make those defensive plays in his own end, but when he gets the puck, that's kind of a different story. So I thought overall he did a good job as number 7.
Yeah, I mean, 7th defenseman's exactly. I mean, you're not asking much, but pretty much it was something that Razor said before the season started. Heiskanen, and draw a circle around everyone else. That's what happened. So I really thought Smith had a fine night. Other than the one shift, I really think he iced the puck twice off of face-off wins on that one shift, which was frustrating to me. But other than that, like you said, not super noticeable. Saw him a couple of times about to bench and then think twice about it and not do it, which is, again, what you want from your 7th defenseman. You don't need him to make a bunch of plays. You just need him to eat up minutes is what it is. And Lundqvist, I thought, had a really good night tonight. There were multiple plays that he was defensively sound and a couple of offensive plays as well. I mean, that's all we need from him. If he keeps showing that consistently, I feel like he'll end up with more minutes.
Yeah, I think Harley did really well tonight too. He had like 3 shots on goals. He had a couple of good chances for goals tonight. So he's doing what he can to try and get on the goal sheet like he did last season, and that's going to be a big part of the Stars game this year. Is when you get our D more activated, which is something we didn't do a lot last season. So it's good to see Harley trying to get on that. I'd like to see Heiskanen doing that a little bit more too. I think he's being a little bit too selfless with the puck. I want to see him dangle into the zone on his own sometimes, take a couple more shots. I think there's some room for Heiskanen to be a little bit more offensive, even though he was outstanding defensively tonight. He put on a clinic.
I just thought the defense in general was very good tonight. And I mean, it had to be, considering that it was the second night of a back-to-back. And that kind of leads me to what I want to talk about next, which is Casey DeSmith. Casey DeSmith, we very briefly talked about him, but he was very good tonight. And yeah, we mentioned, especially in the first period, he was not overly taxed. And that's kind of nice to kind of get into your first regular season game with a new team, and you don't have to worry about too much. Because I even took a picture of the shot chart of the Kraken and put it on the X feed for the Sarcastic Remarks group. I mean, there was nothing. I think the average was like 40 feet away. So it was like 6 shots, so he didn't have to do much. But again, as the game went on, he was very square. He was making sure he was making the right play. And there were a couple of instances, especially as the game went further along, especially in the second period and the second half of the third, where he was called upon to make a pretty decent save, and he did. He gets rewarded with the shutout tonight.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is those can even be tougher when you don't have a lot going on around you. And there's one early in the second period, like right in close, that he made a great save. He went to the butterfly real quick and made himself big and made a huge stop out of a play that kind of developed out of nothing. And that could sometimes be harder if you haven't been seeing a lot of pucks all night. So he stayed ready all night long, and he made the saves that he had to, and the Stars made it so that he didn't have to make anything spectacular. So easy shutout for DeSmith.
A pretty great game in terms of second night of a back-to-back too. Exactly what you want from him.
It was a second night for the Kraken as well, though, too, right?
Yeah.
So not overly taxing. I feel like it was at least even.
Yeah, that is really weird. You don't normally see a lot of this kind of instance. Again, second night of a back-to-back for both teams, and one team it's a back-to-back home game. It's just weird. It's weird left and right. Again, it's probably just the scheduling and how it had to work.
Was it a back-to-back tonight?
It was a back-to-back.
Back
sure?
Back-to-back.
Back-to-back.
We should. Let's just go back-to-back.
Back-to-back.
Well, it was also a back-to-back for Dallas teams as well, but in the same day. But we're not going to talk about the other one. Sorry, Cowboys fans, I love y'all, but
the fourth line.
Oh my gosh,
you're a Cowboy fan. Shut up. Fourth line.
I'm not a huge Cowboys fan. I am a very, very like
fourth line. Sam Steele had a great
Okay. No.
I had a great game.
Oh my gosh.
He did have a great game. I mean, I thought he was really. I mean, last game, me and James talked about how they took a step from the first game, and I thought they took another step tonight. I really like Sam Steele in the center role. I thought he moved up and down the ice really well, and I thought Oscar Back was doing a good job of using his body more, and he made a couple of huge defensive plays, which is what he needs to do.
And he does the same thing every time he gets into the offensive zone, and I love it. He gets into the offensive zone, and he goes in front of the net, and he sits there, and he waits
right
every single time. It's awesome to see him do that because the other two are just flying around in the corners, and he's just planted right in front, waiting for it. And he had a close chance tonight where the puck almost bounced to him, and he's just sitting there waiting for it. I mean, that's a nice thing to see from someone who is defensively sound and actually has made some pretty good defensive plays in the past 2 games.
And I think that's a good example why he wins the extra forward spot over, say, Matej Blumel. I mean, Matej Blumel probably has some skill on him, but Oscar Beck is a known commodity. You know what you're going to get with him every time. He's going to play defensively pretty dang perfect. And offensively, you're probably not going to get much, but he's going to know what he needs to do offensively. And he's going to be a guy that can create momentum and can go out there and bang the body around and create some momentum for your team.
Yeah.
And played on the penalty kill too.
Yes, that is true. That's another good point. And especially with them having to deal with injuries with Maverick Bork being out, that definitely does help. And he also had the play in the first period where it was a 2-on-2. He comes back and he gets the stick on it and very harmlessly gets it to the corner. That's like you said, that's exactly what you're going to get from a guy like Oscar Back. So
that's his 3rd game in the NHL, and he's doing that. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. That's beautiful.
Okay, and speaking of the forwards, something I wanted to talk about was the lineup changes, which I was a little bit surprised about, and we kind of alluded to it earlier. But Stankoven goes down to the 3rd line. Dodonov is elevated to the 1st line. I would like to get his thoughts, Pete DeBoer's thoughts as to why he did this. Obviously, I know Stankoven is going to be a driver on whatever line he's on, but so is Wyatt Johnston. And maybe they just didn't like what they saw on that 3rd line with Dodonov, and they were just like, here, let's just try this, just to see what happens. Maybe we can get a little bit more out of both of those lines. But I mean, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't like it. I just kind of was just like whatever. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I liked having Stankoven on that top line. It created a lot more energy and a lot more pressure, I thought, with all 3 of those guys up there. And it worked really well the first game. It seems weird to me that they would switch off of it so quickly after a second game where they didn't get any points. But it worked out for that 3rd line, at least, with them scoring, and they all got a point on that. All 3 of the forwards did, so that worked out. But I don't think it's a big deal. We're going to get Bork back probably on Tuesday, and then I think we'll see our normal, quote-unquote, normal forward lines. And as long as that looks good, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I think really the 1st and the 3rd line, a lot of those players can swap between without any problems at all. I mean, you could put Johnston on the top line. You could put Stankoven on the top line. I mean, Ben could even be on the top line if you have to put him there. You really don't want him to be there. But, I mean, anyone who you throw with Robertson and Hintz is going to do just fine. Those 2 players have played with each other for so long. They know where they're going to be. They just need someone else to go and get the puck. And I think that's some of the thought behind Dodonov is he's he's puck hungry, just like Stankoven is, and trying to get Stankoven maybe more with Ben, who he's going to play more with for the rest of the season. I don't know.
And that is a good point, because Dodonov can be a driver. He can. He's got speed. He's just not at that elite level talent like Stankoven or Johnston is, in my opinion. He's very good, and he absolutely can be a driver. I just thought it was I don't, and kind of how Brian put it, it was a head scratching move. I just thought it was interesting. It was different. Maybe they were just like, hey, let's just try this. Yeah. It must be nice to do that.
Dodonov was a driver on the fourth line in the playoffs last year, but it is weird to see them elevate him all the way to the top. And I don't know what they're trying. Maybe it's just early season tinkering, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be a big deal. We're going to see Dodonov on the fourth line as long as Bork is back on Tuesday. So.
Right. Well, and here's the other nice thing about all of this. And again, y'all said it. All of these guys can play with each other. I mean, honestly, you could see.
There's one line that stays together. You don't touch.
Yeah, you don't touch that line. Yes.
Everyone else can move.
Right, and it's like, even like someone like
Sam Steele.
I mean, even Sam Steele. Sam Steele could be okay on the first line in a pinch. I mean, like, it wouldn't be fantastic, but he could be okay, and he wouldn't look out of place. And there're just lots of utility guys, lots of things that like. Rip to him, but Ty Dellandrea was very good about moving up and down the lineup. And now it seems like we have a lot of those guys that can do that sort of thing, because everyone feels so comfortable about playing with everybody. I mean, you could throw Ben on the top line, or you could, put him down on the, I don't know. There's lots of options.
Who else could you put on the top line?
Oscar Back.
Who else?
Yeah. Put him on the top line. Colin Blackwell.
Who else?
Julius Honka.
Anyway, Wyatt Johnson scored a pretty good goal.
Jake Ottinger.
Wyatt Johnson scored a pretty good goal.
That was a quick. It's a very weird game. So there's a reason why we're talking and yapping all this. It's because all the scoring happened within 13 seconds, and then the rest of the game was just like, yeah. So it's really weird from like a spectator standpoint to watch this type of game where it's the first period, it's late in the first period, and bang, bang, there's both the goals, and there's no more scoring for the rest of the game.
Well, we should ask Casey. Casey was there at the game tonight, so I'd be curious to know what she thought. I know she wasn't the only one, so those of you that were at the game, let us know what you thought, because it was a very weird game to watch at home, at least. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've overlooked. Is there anything else that I've overlooked? I think we hit everything.
Stankoven gets another point. Hooray.
Yep. I mean,
still stoned. No goals.
He's still got, whatever.
He'll get there. He will absolutely get there. I would like to see him back on the top line for the next game, but again, it just depends on what we got moving forward, if Bork is going to be able to play in the next game. The thing that does suck, though, is I don't want to see Oscar Back come out of the lineup either, because he's been pretty good as well. So it's a good problem to have. The Stars are looking really good. We're 3-0, and the funny part is we haven't even necessarily played all that well. We just seen just some decent spurts.
I thought this past two games was some pretty great defense from the Stars.
The Islanders game was worse than this one was, but like it's still, I mean, you give up no goals. That's pretty solid.
It's gotten progressively better over the past 3 games, which is fantastic. Definitely. It was like sloppy, wide open play, but high talent game 1. Game 2, we locked it down a little bit better. Got pretty lucky with a lot of posts. And this game is locked down even more. And you did what you had to do on a second night of back to back.
And all the goals have been beautiful goals. I mean, they've been snipes. Razor said it during the broadcast. They're shooting high. They're shooting high, and all of them are picking corners.
No Celebrini goals here.
No. Yeah. Oh, I was actually looking forward to watching him play, but it is what it is. And
it was like 9 goals from 7 different players too. That's spectacular. All 4 lines have already scored, and it was the 3rd game of the season. That is something that's really, really encouraging to see when you come into a new season after last season for the Stars, where you see like a ton of different 20 goal scorers, and you come in here and you're like, okay, can they do it again? And they've already proven that they kind of can. Now they got a long way to go still, but first 3 games looking pretty good.
Yeah, no one from the top 2 lines scored tonight. It was the bottom 2 lines who took care of business tonight on the offensive side of the puck. So, I mean, that's exactly what you want if you're a Pete DeBoer system and you roll 4 lines. It's excellent. It's exactly what you want. So, maybe what I should have said is I still think there's another level to this team that we are going to see later on.
Well,
and that's
game 3.
that's the
I
exciting
hope there's
part.
another level.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Understatement of the year.
Okay. All right. Biggest winner and biggest loser of this game tonight. Chris, who do you got for your biggest winner?
Wyatt Johnston. Y'all did not talk about that shot enough. That's a crazy shot. Got it off his tape so quick, and it was in the perfect spot. Unsavable, honestly, is what I think. That was
especially
an
for
shot.
where Grubauer was too. I mean, he was out of position a tiny little bit, and Wyatt Johnson took
and
he didn't even give him a chance. There was
and
no
he knew
chance.
that, and he took him to the far post and made him pay for it.
Yeah.
That was just a really, really good shooter and a really good sniper, just making a goalie look silly.
Yeah.
I mean, completely 100%, because it's not like the defensive coverage by Seattle was bad either. Like, they took away the pass across the ice.
He was on the wing,
Yeah, and it was just Johnston against the goalie, and Johnston made him look stupid. He might have been off his angle a little bit, but it was still such a great shot. James, who have you got?
I'm going to give my biggest winner to Nils Lundqvist. I thought he played really, really well tonight for how much crap we kind of give him. And he's still got a long way to go. There's no doubt about that. But this was a really good game. And this is a game that you need to repeat over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think he's had a good start to the year. And I don't need anything special, but he has to keep doing this. You're right.
Yeah.
Consistency is the key for Nils Lundqvist, in my opinion. I will give it to the obvious one for me. I'll give it to Casey DeSmith. He was really good tonight. He wasn't overly taxed, like I said, and he was allowed to kind of settle in, especially in his first game in the regular season, I should say. But especially the second half of the third, like I mentioned earlier, he was very, very, very good and kind of mopped up some problems defensively when the Stars broke down. So, I mean, this makes me so excited for that tandem of both of those guys. And, maybe he gets a little bit more games and lets Ottinger kind of rest a little bit more so Otter can be ready for the playoffs. So he's my biggest winner tonight. Biggest loser, Chris, who we got?
Who was it that missed that open net? Was it Eberle?
It was McCann. Jared McCann.
There you go. McCann, biggest
scorer.
Loser. I mean, you had it on the power play. That turns it into a hockey game if he just puts that home. And he's the guy that they want to be there, and he just can't do it. So that sucks.
James?
My biggest loser is going to go to Marchment because he kept going to the penalty box. The retaliatory calls, that's really bad. He knows not to do that. That's an early season thing too. That's so weird from him because normally he gets beat up like that and he gets the call and then he just shuts up and skates away. And he's normally really good about that, but the retaliatory call is really bad. And the tripping was but the Kraken were also trying to draw those tonight. They were diving a bit and you could tell that early. So stick gets in the way, you get called for it. That's how it works.
Yeah, he's an emotional player, but he needs to make sure that he keeps it where it needs to be. Like he's emotional to where he can draw those calls, but he's also to the point where he can do what he did tonight and create a 4-on-4. So he needs to keep using that emotion because that's what makes him such a great player and such a great forechecker, especially. But he's got to make sure he can control it.
And to his credit a little bit, I thought he did a decent job because the Kraken did not let up on him after they realized that he did that. They were cross-checking him all night long.
Was
every time he got in front of him. I can't believe he didn't get another drawn call. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Now, in my opinion, the first one was very stupid. And I kind of put up Zachary Mitchell's comment up here. The second Marchment minor was legit tripping, and it wasn't a bad penalty on Mush's part that time. But the first one, he draws a penalty and then goes and breaks his stick on somebody. Geez, yes, that's a good summary of how I felt about the penalty calls against him. And he has to know and he has to understand that, like the Michael Bunting situation when Michael Bunting was in Toronto, he's not going to get the benefit of the doubt from the rest. He's just not.
Huge target.
And it's not and it's not fair But at the same time, he has to work around.
It's a little fair.
It's a little fair. He kind of dies a little bit.
4 times in the last 2 years.
Okay, fair. Never. Okay, maybe.
But he
maybe
still
not.
has a target on his back, and he has to play he does.
So the first penalty hacked me off. The second penalty, I wish it wasn't a penalty because he was going for the puck and it was a scoring chance when that happened. It was just unfortunate the way that it happened. And yes, it was tripping. So I do agree that it was tripping. And again, his very next comment was Zach's comment. It didn't have to be intentional. I mean, it can be accidental. I mean, just like high sticking like 90% of the time, or maybe even 99% of the time, is not intentional. I mean, it is almost never intentional. So it is what it is. But hopefully
and Zach's last comment, we'll just bring Zach onto the podcast, I guess, now. But you do have to give him credit because he is having a great start to the season, like Zach said. And that emotion that he plays with that got him into trouble a little bit tonight is what makes him great. So he needs to keep doing that. It's just checking it a little bit. Like, again, we're being super nitpicky right now. We've just won 2 games, 5-0.
Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of our job. To find things to help this team get better. But
speaking of having to be nitpicky, we're one of 4 teams or 5 teams that are still undefeated on the season. The 82-0 game, the 82-0 season is still intact.
3 of those teams are in the Central, by the way.
Yeah, 3 of them are in the Central.
And
2 of them didn't make the playoffs.
Right, I know, right? So, yeah, so we'll do our weekly podcast here. But like the whole thing in Utah, that's nuts, absolutely nuts.
I saw it coming.
It's fun, but it's nuts. Anyways, to try and get back on track here, my biggest loser for today is scoring in the American Airlines Center for opposing teams. It does not exist this weekend for either one of the teams going into the AAC in downtown Dallas. It's amazing. Love to see that continue on, and the Stars continue their solid team defense that they've had for a very long time now. So that's my biggest loser, and yeah, not much to expand upon there. Anything else, gentlemen? We're up to 40 minutes.
No, all
Tuesday, 7 o'clock against the Sharks with no Celebrini.
No Celebrini, so it's going to be a sad game for the Sharks.
The Sharks' last game was really sad. I don't know if anyone watched it, but it was sad.
Yeah, and it was against the Ducks too, and they lost.
That was a terrible.
That was just sad. I watched it and I was just like, "This is so sad." I was at a marching contest, and I was just like, what else is going on? And I pulled that up, and I was just like, "Oh my goodness, never mind." It was so sad to watch. Okay. Anyways, let's wrap this up here. Thank you guys for watching us live that have been doing so. There's more of you that are listening afterwards. Both this episode and last night's episode are going to be available on the audio side tomorrow morning. And thank you to DraftKings Sportsbook and to Game Time for being our sponsors. I almost did it again, Chris. And thank you, as always, to them for being our sponsors. THPN is the promo code there. SarcasticRemarks.com is the website. SarcasticRemarksShop.com is the merch store. Thank you so much for all of you guys supporting us and everything that we do. We have such a large amount of fun doing this, and I still find it crazy that we've been doing this since COVID. Literally since COVID, we've been doing this, and it's grown into what it is now. So thank you so much. Alongside Chris, alongside James, my name is Ryan. We'll catch you guys on the flip side. Hope you guys have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you guys are listening. Chris, do us a favor and take us out.
82-0. GG, boys.